Okay, Michael, we've got some big news for the cold open this week. Big news. Oscar Isaac is going to play some character I've never heard of in Metal Gear Solid.
Oh.
No, I'm joking. Okay, Warner Brothers are going to release all of its 2021 movies on HBO, Max, and theaters simultaneously. Yes, it's been a while since the entertainment world has had some really holy shit news, but those are really only two words that can capture an announcement like this. Warner Brothers has revealed that every single movie on its 2021 schedule will be available on HBO Max at the same time as its theatrical release. Wow, that could be... I mean, many people were joking yesterday on Twitter, which is why I'm very surprised you didn't see it, that it's going to be the end of movies. End of movie theaters, I should say. And this could be it. And like we said before, with the pandemic, it kind of accelerated what we thought was going to happen. But now this has been the actual harbinger of change. HBO Max explicitly saying, no, forget the pandemic. Things could be fine by September, August, that kind of region. I'm pretty sure that's when, we've got movies coming out still then. But no, we're still going to release it online and not in movie theaters. So yeah, your reaction, Michael.
What do they think they are? Some kind of home box office?
That's great. Yeah. That's funny.
No, yeah. Also, so that means presumably we're going to get to see the Zack Snyder cut released. Is that in 2021, Luke?
I don't know, but I hope so.
Because to be honest, I mean, if that's so different from Justice League, the problem is we've been doing this DC Ember thing, and we're not doing it this year, are we? DC Ember was a great pastime of this channel because it was the one clever name we were able to come up with, and we haven't done it this year because there've been no DC films. But if we get the Zack Snyder cut, DC Ember is going to be back and better than ever next year.
Yeah, it also works because now people will finally have a reason to subscribe to HBO Max.
Yes.
Which is, I don't know, it's like the 6th or 7th most popular streaming service. But yeah, now this is big news. And this might be it, Michael. We might look back on this day, early December 2020, as the day that movie theaters died.
Yeah. It's a good thing this big news is here to accompany such a fantastic film that's going to garner so much public interest.
Great.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating the 40-year anniversary of The Blue Lagoon. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about The Blue Lagoon?
Do I have to, Michael?
Yes, it's your job that you don't get paid for.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romantic survival drama film directed by Randall Kleiser from a screenplay written by Douglas Day Stewart, based on the 1908 novel of the same name by it's Henry, but because it's French, or is it Dutch? I don't know. What is this? This is an interesting name.
Henri.
Yeah, it could be that. Let's just click. An Irish-British author. So it's not. It's it's pronounced Henry, not Henri. Henry DeVere Stackpool is the name of the person who wrote this novel. The film stars Brooke Shields and Christopher Atkins, along with Leo McKern and William Daniels. And you will know William Daniels, of course, Michael, as the guy who played Mr. Feeney on the ABC sitcom Boy Meets World.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
I was struggling with that for a long time. It's nice to finally put a name to the face.
Yeah, Mr. Feeney, very famous character, of course. Apparently also a paedophile, but I don't know about that. And that's just a rumor I've heard. He's not the actor, the character. But that's just conjecture mainly. I would suspect. The film was released on June the 20th, 1980. So, like you say, Michael, 40 years ago. Of course, we're not really near June, but you know what? Still 40 years technically. And can you guess what the budget was for The Blue Lagoon?
I mean, they had to go to an island. They had to literally get shipwrecked. So I'm guessing 10 million?
4.5.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
4.5 million, yeah. Not as much. And how about the box office? How much did this make?
See, I mean, I haven't really heard of this film, to be honest. So I don't really know much about it. But I'm going to go for 40 million?
58.8.
Okay.
So, yeah, decent amount. So yeah, essentially, this movie was released on June the 20th, like we said, in 1980, and was immediately panned by critics. But interestingly, it was, like we just saw, a commercial success, grossing over 58 million on a 4.5 million budget, and was the 9th highest grossing film of 1980 in North America. Yes. So there you go. Now, Michael, comes the question: did you like The Blue Lagoon?
It wasn't terrible by any means. I would say there were aspects of it that I kind of enjoyed. There were other aspects of it I found to be lacking. What about you, Luke?
I was extremely bored throughout this movie, and I am once again disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that later. But yeah, so the film was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Cinematography, actually. So this movie has an Oscar nomination, which is quite funny. The cinematography is quite good, though. And Atkins, who plays Richard, was nominated for the Golden Globe Award for New Star of the Year in Actor. But his co-star Brooke Shields wasn't so lucky. She won the inaugural Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actress for her work in the film. So not so good for old Brooke Shields. Maybe I don't know. I really didn't see a massive difference between the two. Like, one comes out of this movie with glowing reviews, and the other one gets panned.
Yeah, but I think it's because women have to be more emotional, like in films. Generally, so she whereas with the guy just got to be grumpy, which, let's be honest, men are pretty good at that anyway, am I right, ladies? So, it was easier for him. It's my theory.
But, we'll get into more about this movie in a bit, but firstly, Michael, nitpicks. How many nitpicks do you have?
I've got 2.
Okay, you go first, because I've got 3.
So, first of all, I don't really understand why they didn't pick up more of the crewmen when the ship was going down and the people had jumped, because it was kind of, there was room on the boat, and they were relatively close to where the ship sunk. And yeah, it just seemed weird to me that there wasn't they weren't like, oh, let's stick around and see if we can pick up more people. They just kind of rode away, and I don't think that was a sufficient explanation. So I wasn't happy with that. And then number 2, she doesn't look that pregnant, even when she's having the baby. So it's kind of weird. They really put no effort into getting any kind of bump across. And I also have, I guess, another part of that, which is the baby is kicking, and even then she does not look pregnant at all. And I'm doesn't the baby only start kicking once it's quite big, and therefore there's a big bump there? She does not look really even at all pregnant in any of the scenes where she's supposed to be pregnant. So that's weird.
Yeah, I actually did think that. It was after the childbirth, it's she looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
As she did, before. But whatever. So my nitpicks are, how does the kid, Richard, not know what a skull is? That's my first impression. How does he not know? Surely he'd know. He's about 7 years old. I mean, he eventually works it out because he sees a skeleton on the beach. But yeah, I can't believe he doesn't know what a skull is. What's this thing with 2 holes in it?
Yeah,
give me a break.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah.
I don't know, it's a nitpick, I just want to point it out. When he says, I'll spare you.
Okay, that was my favourite bit.
Yeah, that was funny. And my last nitpick, because basically we could nitpick this movie to death, but really a lot of nitpicks kind of need to be talked about in terms of how they relate to the plot.
Yeah.
The house that they build is pretty damn good, I have to say. I would even go as far as to say it's probably a bit too good. Given these kids probably have no skills relating to house building and so on, or woodwork or anything like that. And I think that house looks like it's out of I don't know,
the
Swiss
Flintstones.
Family
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And it's too good. Essentially, it's got a fucking slide down from the first floor to the. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yes.
But yeah. So anyway, those are my nitpicks, Michael. But the question really is, despite the nitpicks, is this a good movie? And the answer is no. Well, let's go through the plot first. So, the film tells the story of 2 young children marooned on a tropical island paradise in the South Pacific. With neither the guidance nor the restrictions of society, emotional and physical changes arise as they reach puberty and fall in love. There's actually, if you look at the Wikipedia page, I don't know if this was the actual poster that was used, but interestingly, for the Blue Lagoon poster, there is actually, I think, a description of the movie on the poster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the director of Grease, Randall Kleiser, brings
to screen. Wait, let me read it, Luke. The director of Grease, Randall Kleiser, brings to the screen a sensual story of natural love. Two children shipwrecked alone on a tropical island. Nature is kind. They thrive on the bounty of jungle and lagoon. The boy grows tall, the girl beautiful. When their love happens, it is as natural as the sea. And as powerful.
What the... I hadn't read that before then.
Shit, yeah,
I hadn't seen that. I was going to read it then. I didn't think it was going to be that hilarious.
Yeah. To be fair, I think it's a good thing you didn't read that, because you are notoriously bad at reading stuff that doesn't really make grammatical sense. Like, you always trip over whenever you
And the opposite of Ron Burgundy.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, in this case, yeah, that's, I mean, the boy grows tall, the girl beautiful.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Whenever I read stuff, I think, oh shit, I'm doing it wrong. I must have missed something.
Yeah.
That's why
I have more confidence in myself.
Yeah. Well, my favourite line has to be the theme on the bounty of jungle. No, sorry, they thrive on the bounty of jungle and lagoon. Yes. The jungle and lagoon. That's what they thrive on. The boy grows tall, as you know, boys do. It's a natural thing for boys to be tall. The girl beautiful, of course.
Yeah. Also, that kid does not have a good side profile, does he? Like, he's not bad looking from the front, but I only just realized that he's really lacking a chin. It's no good. You're gonna have to put that now. The thumbnail is gonna have to be a side profile, otherwise no one's gonna know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
well, they can also always go on the Wikipedia page.
They can always watch the film.
Yeah, they could. They could, I guess, always watch the film, but I wouldn't really advise on doing that. Okay, we need to get onto it, Michael. Why did this movie get selected?
I'm guessing. I'm assuming, because I'll be truthish, Luke. I was watching this film and I was thinking, even before I watched it, I was like, why did Luke pick this? I don't know. And then, and I was watching it and I was like, yeah, I don't really know why Luke picked it, because it doesn't seem like a film where there's too much to really, I guess, reflect on. And then I saw, and I'm guessing this is why you picked it. I saw that this film got the first ever Razzie for a bad actress, and I was thinking, oh well, that's possibly why, because the first Razzie. That
was part of it.
Popped the raspberry.
Yeah, indeed. No, that was part of it. But here's the thing: a lot of movies have been moved to 2021 because of this thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, Michael. The Queen's Gambit. Yes. Everybody's watching that, so nobody's watching movies, and so therefore, all these movies are going to 2021, and I had to find a movie for us to review this week. And of course, there's plenty of movies out there. And I was looking at movies from 30 years ago, movies from 40 years ago, movies from 50, 60, you get the gist, anniversary movies. And on the 1980 movies list, I saw a movie called The Blue Lagoon that was released this year. And I was like, I think I've heard of The Blue Lagoon. So, I looked at it, I looked at a whole bunch of movies. And then when I was looking at it, I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score, which is, of course, 8%. 8%. And that was when my mind was like, oh, hello, what have we got here? And then I saw the poster. I was intrigued. And then I went on the Wikipedia page and I read all the plot and stuff. And then I saw this bit. The film contained substantial sexual content. And I was like, oh, here we go. A movie, 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, substantial sexual content. This could be hilarious. This could be one of those movies where it's like, I guess, 365 days.
That was pretty funny.
It maybe won't match up to that, but it could still be pretty damn good. And then, of course, I read about the Golden Raspberry, and I was like, okay, this is what we got to watch. It's clearly an interesting movie to some extent. But after watching the movie, I was like, okay, I can see why 8% was given on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's not because it's so bad it's good. It's just because this is an incredibly boring movie. And it kind of reminds me of when I did when I chose to review The Net with Sandra Bullock. That one always sticks with me, where I thought, oh, this is going to be hilarious. It's not rated well. It's about internet and computers in the year 1995. There's going to be so many hilarious lines that we can laugh at. And it was just quite boring and below average. and like, okay, well, that was a bit...
It just goes to show that Rotten Tomatoes is actually you, insofar as when Rotten Tomatoes thinks a film is bad, it just means it's bad. So really what you should be doing is you should be looking for films that are reviewed very well by Rotten Tomatoes, because that's what the rule has shown so far. You know, the worse a film is on Rotten Tomatoes, the more you dislike it. So actually, if you want to find so bad they're good films, you need to be looking at the 100% films.
I don't think it works like that, really. But I do see your point. Like, The Room's got like 30%, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes, for instance. Birdemic, I think, is higher than this. Like, genuinely, if you want to look at so bad they're good movies, they aren't like in the single digits, because then people don't ironically rate them highly. So yeah, this is one of those movies, and I will say there are some funny lines in here, and you can get some laughter out of it, just not a lot. So in that respect, I'd say it's better than The Net, but it is closer than I would have liked, essentially. So yeah, let's get into it, Michael. So The Blue Lagoon. We've gone through the plot. Two kids trapped on an island in paradise. Because their boats that they were on sank. Where were they going, Michael, again?
San Frisco, they keep saying.
San Frisco, there you go. San Frisco, great. So my first reaction when watching this movie is the two kids, they don't seem to care. They've just lost their father.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, one of them is their dad. Obviously, the other one, their parents are dead. But yeah, so this kid, Richard, he's lost his father. It doesn't seem to bother him. He just, he's just happy in paradise on this tropical island. And that was the first sign, I think, of like, okay, this movie is probably not going to be that good. And what did you think about that?
No, yeah, I pretty much agree. Like the children in general, yeah, they seem kind of, I don't know, like it's sort of, you've mentioned Birdemic already. It kind of reminds me of when you've got the kids in Birdemic and it's like, I want a Happy Meal, and they just like seem incredibly like the children are not behaving in a way that's realistic, like basically as if the person who's in charge of writing the dialogue, the screenwriter, I guess, knew that children can sometimes be responding to things in not this quite correct emotional capacity, and thinking, well, that means that even if there's a situation where things are going really serious, the child would just be there kind of acting really casual about it, which is obviously not how children work. Definitely, it's 100% like you just think, yeah, they do seem too casual about it, and it's no Castaway when it comes to dealing with the emotional fallout of being stranded on desert island.
Well, you mentioned Birdemic before, Michael, and of course we can't forget that Birdemic was in that movie. The kids that were in it had their parents just die as well.
And
that's why the Happy Meal line is so hilarious. She's whining about Happy Meals when her parents have just been killed. And yeah, it's obviously the opposite kind of thing. Yeah, the kids are happy, but hey, Richard, he's just lost his dad. He doesn't know where he is. And I mean, they don't seem to care. So yeah, bad start really, I'd say. And then so like we say, the kids, they're having a good time and everything. They're exploring the coral, and then they well, do you know what happens next, Michael? Do you know what I'm going to mention? Can I have to mention it?
Oh, I mean, I'm trying to think, because obviously, I mean, I can think about the fact they get wasted on rum. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
No.
The berry things?
No, the kids.
So when are we talking? So are they still children at this point?
Yes.
I mean, I tell you what, Luke, I've got to be honest with you. This film is not that interesting. So tell me what it is, and then I'll remember.
Okay, I'll just have to come out and say it, Michael. There's naked children.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the children are naked. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking actually, because when you said that the guy who played the person from Boy Meets World well, you said the person from Boy Meets World was a paedophile, but I thought you said the guy plays it. I was thinking, oh, he would have loved it on the set of this film then, wouldn't he? Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, they are naked throughout the film. Well, yes, they are naked throughout the film. They're only children for a bit of the film, which is, okay. You got to remember, people didn't realize back then in the 1980s. Maybe this is the genesis of all those dodgy people going to Hollywood. All the people went to see this film, and then they were like, "Oh, that's what filmmaking's like, is it? Oh, I'll have a go at that."
Yeah, I mean, when they took their clothes off for the first time, I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is a bit weird." And then they did it again. And then there's these shots of these just naked children swimming in the I guess in the coral in the shallow waters, and I thought the naked stuff was coming later. I was like, okay, we're already at it then. Fine, fair enough. And when the guy, Paddy, is running, saying, come back here and put your clothes on.
Yeah,
I have
to
say, I laughed at that. I laughed at that so much. But yeah, and that's the thing. We talk about the fact that, Hollywood maybe is a bit liberal. Yeah, I mean, maybe not the best word to use because of its political connotations, but, maybe a bit liberal when it comes to having sex with kids, shall we say. And
good innuendo there, Luke.
Yeah.
Very subtle.
But especially around this time in the 1980s, you had I think
this is why Reagan was elected.
No, it was, man. It was. Look at what these Hollywood liberals are doing. Making these movies with naked kids. We've got to stop them. We've got to elect Reagan. No, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I think it was around that time when people just were in Hollywood were probably had this mindset that, well, hey, love is love. Not just in terms of being gay or whatever, but in terms of you can have sex with kids. There's no moral issue with that. If you're attracted to them, it's fine. Isn't that what the great philosopher Foucault argued, Michael?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And when did he pass away? Because he was alive in the 80s.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously he was. I don't know when he passed away, to be honest. I do remember we had to read his. Did you have to read his book in university, Crime and Punishment?
Yes.
That's So I think because he wrote that about because what was it, the Panopticon? Do you remember that, Luke? Remember that? Let's talk about Foucault.
No, I had to actually write about that on one of my essays.
I think I remember you mentioning it
in the test I did. And yeah, his big thing, Foucault, was a prison is like a prison. So shout out to him. He died in 1984. So basically, I think he was one of the people who, and there was a new wave of thinking coming in, because in the 60s you had, the hippie movement, and then it's basically, well, how far is that going to go? Like, love is love who you like, be happy. And then eventually these people, and I think this was the case in the early 1980s from my knowledge in Hollywood, were like, there's no moral issues with having sex with children, because,
that's when Roman Polanski was around too.
It was when, yes,
and Woody Allen.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
All of them really.
All of them. Yeah, we'll be here all day if we're going to name them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. That, yeah, you're joking, but it's kind of true. And there's so many stories, and it's just like, yeah, that's what people were. Even Steven Spielberg, Michael, might have been doing some or known about some dodgy stuff. Let's say known about, not to get, because we don't want to get sued by Steven Spielberg. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, then you watch this movie which came out in 1980 with naked kids, and it's just like, it's a whole other world, man. It's a whole other world. I mean, people complaining about cuties now. Wait till they see the Blue Lagoon. Yeah,
that's kind of true. Because I was thinking about the fact it should be pointed out that if you've ever been on a beach, then there usually are just, I would say, see the thing, I guess 7's quite old. You'll often see like kind of 3 or 4 year old kids just running around naked, just all the time. Like 3 and 4 year old kids are just naked 100%
but it's a different thing to then filming them.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's a definite difference.
Yeah, and I do think in a way, you mentioned cuties. Obviously, one of the things people were saying with cuties is it was like, well, there are a lot of 11-year-old children who are being very sexualized in society. That was kind of the big thing with cuties. And the point everyone's making, well, it's something that does happen. These people are being sexualized in society. These children are being sexualized in society. So this film is just documenting that. And then, of course, you get to the classic question. Well, does that mean you should film it? And, well,
I would say, argue on some of those cuties, no, because the point you're trying to make is child sexualization is bad. And then
you're just sexualizing children.
We were hashing that thing about the one thing we didn't want to happen.
The one thing we didn't want to happen.
Don't want to sexualize. Oh, damn it. We released the most famous movie of the last 20 years that sexualized kids. I don't know if that's the case, but yeah, whatever. But yeah, this movie again, I mean, they didn't have to do it. Like, they could have the kids have clothes, but they went for it. And so again, I just think it's a different era back then, different era when that kind of thing would have been, I don't know if it would have been acceptable in wider America, if it would have been condemned, but certainly, Hollywood pumping that stuff out. Oh yeah, I can imagine that happening. So, okay, let's get back onto the movie now. We've sidestepped it a bit into talking about paedophilia, which of course is a weekly occurrence now on this
show.
No, but so let's talk about Paddy. What a stupid way to kill himself.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, I really wanted to talk about that. It's so annoying from a, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a bit, but kind of jumping ahead in a broad sense. It's so annoying because for the rest of the film, there's this tension around the natives, which I want to get into in more detail at some point. But the big issue with it, I was thinking, is like, there's no tension because we can be reasonably confident these children, these characters aren't going to be killed by natives, you know. And certainly, maybe they die at some point. We could have thought that. We could have thought they might die at some point. But you can be reasonably confident they're not going to be killed. And it means there's not really any tension with having these violent, or, you know, I guess, pretty violent natives on this island. And it seems like such a bizarre waste to just have this character die when you've already established that there are these, you know, other people on the island who could be scary. And then it's like, oh, should we have, you know, the main, oh, sorry, not the main character, but this Paddy guy fight them and get killed by them, you know, something that would be exciting. No, let's just have him swim off while drunk, and then just, I don't know, I guess he drowns and then gets washed ashore on the other side, or did he just die from alcohol poisoning? I'm not even sure. But yeah, it just seems like a massive wasted opportunity that then takes a lot of the intrigue out of the rest of the film, because it's like, well, we know that no one else is going to die. Now that he's gone.
He dies very, very early.
Yeah, exactly.
I think as well. And it's just it's like the movie's like, okay, this guy has to die now. We have to get the kids on their own. So Paddy, you just go out and drown yourself, drinking rum. It
does feel genuine. Just as, I don't want to be in this film anymore.
Yeah. Well, I played my part. Goodbye, kids.
Yeah.
Enjoy your naked swimming together.
He was kind of a nice character. Like he was one of those characters. He's kind of grumpy, but he's kind of like lovable at the same time. So it's kind of like that if they wanted to, they could have had that death have some impact. Because, you know, I was kind of fond of the character. I thought the character was pretty nice. And, you know, that scene of him chasing the naked kids, being like, oh, yeah, put some clothes on. Probably the only person in Hollywood saying to naked children.
It's just the director looking at the script. Are you sure that's the line?
Yeah, the director was like, he's got to go. Stop telling kids to put clothes on, or we're going to write you out of the script. Okay. No, yeah, but then they're just like, so
he tries to spank them earlier, doesn't he?
Yeah. So you're kind of endeared to him. And, you know, as much as you can be in the time that you get with him, because he just seems like I say, kind of a lovable but kind of angry guy. And then they could have. I think if they would have kept him around a bit longer, they could have actually got some more emotion out of me by having him die later on and in a less stupid way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is such a stupid way to kill himself for sure. And yeah, also another question that needs to be asked is, could the kids survive by themselves? I mean, they've got food, I guess, and they've got water, so there's that. So I guess that's all you need to survive. But yeah, I think it'd be quite difficult, and none of the struggles are shown. Basically, immediately after Paddy dies, you know, they move to a different part of an island, they build a house, they go naked swimming again, and then basically they morph into adults.
Yes.
While they are swimming, and I was thinking actually when they were swimming in the water for the second time, I was thinking, this is going on a bit long. You know, this has turned from, you know, artistically, you know, showing their freedom to, it sems like we're just showing naked kids. But then I
think it would have really communicated their freedom and their oneness with nature if they would have twerked.
But then it transitions to them as teenagers. So I guess that section had to be long. Maybe it's the best way of doing it. I don't know, but yeah, I did think overall, just talking about the kids, their acting was pretty bad.
Yes,
so maybe the director saw them act and sighed and was just like, all right, I guess more naked kid swimming shots then. It's the only thing they can do. Let's crank that underwater camera up again. But then they become teenagers, and that happens about 30 minutes into the movie, and suddenly things get a lot more straightforward as where this is going to go. Now this is because they've skipped over all the hard parts of living in an island. It's just going to be okay. Now these two characters, they're going to quote unquote fall in love, and do you want to start talking about that, Michael? About the two when they're teenagers, the characters.
Yeah. So actually, I do have some kind of there's some aspects of it which I kind of liked. I liked the idea of, there were a lot of moments when I was watching this film where I was kind of thinking I like some of these ideas. Even when we spoke about that guy dying, for example, I already said I liked the guy, and I thought if they would have, which is kind of what is the strange thing about this film, that in a way it's not, I've already said it's not so bad, it's good. The funny thing is it's not like a really bad film where every bad mistake could have been made. A lot of it was kind of interesting. And for example, the idea of them basically having to go through puberty without having any knowledge of sex education is kind of interesting because obviously, for example, she has her period and she has no idea what's happening, which you think about like, wow, that's just crazy. And then obviously the other thing is it's established early on. The guy's like, oh, you're so grumpy all the time nowadays. You're always so angry, blah blah blah, and then you're then you realize, oh, it's because of hormones and puberty and stuff. So I did like the idea of basically it's kind of building on that fact that teenagers who had no adult supervision, who were just left alone on an island, would just be a complete mess. And I did enjoy that. But obviously the problem there is it relies on some good acting in order to communicate that well. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea, but yeah, the execution was there was a lot of kind of overacting, I guess it felt like a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, immediately from the start, I can tell we're going to be in for a rocky ride here. When Richard asks, "Why are we fighting so much?" to Emmeline, that's what it was called, and they weren't fighting.
Yes,
I mocked him, I guess, or something. For I can't remember, but yeah. And then the tension, I guess, the tension is going to be awful between these two. I guess it probably would be a bit weird. Well, that's the thing. You ask, is it interesting? I don't know if it's interesting because these two would probably, she doesn't know that she has a period. Oh yeah, that's what would probably happen. I mean, I don't really care, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, they have obviously. Well, that's the thing. They start becoming attracted to each other, and I don't understand why. So they should be aware that girls like boys and all that. There's no way. And boys like girls, obviously, back. There's no way they would be that naive, When Richard asks Emmeline, why are you staring at my muscles? Yeah. I mean, it's like, oh my fucking... You have to be extremely just dumb. I never picked up any clues about the society to not get that, women and men find each other attracted when they're adults.
Yeah, it's funny because they are quite old, and obviously the thing is,
they're like 14 apparently.
Yeah, and it's kind of so obviously there's a scene where the guy slinks off to have a little cheeky wank, and it does make you think, like, presumably, like once you've hit puberty. I mean, I'm not an exact expert on this, which is maybe why I wouldn't do such a good job if I was on an island. But I think like once you get puberty, that's when you start, getting erections and. Surely at that point, that's when so basically I'm like, this guy looks like, I guess he's 14. So he's 14 and you think, surely he would have had some kind of thoughts. Like it's kind of, and it's also very weird that they seem to, the boy within seemingly a very short amount of time, it goes from being completely naive about why the girl is attracted to him to being very much on board with it within. The thing is, the timeline with this film is a bit confusing. Like 9 months passes like nothing, so it's kind of hard to tell. But the way it's kind of presented, it seems as if he's just like
that is an issue. Yeah, the time you have no idea how long.
Yes, exactly.
They look the same. Like she looks the same when we first see her after she's had a baby. Like you have no idea how long has passed. Also he has like, why does hair grow on him? And he must have seen how people who are older than him.
Oh yeah.
Male have hairs, hair on their arms where kids don't. I mean, like, you can't be that dumb. You can't be that dumb. And yeah, the scene where he's jacking off on a rock, that was funny. And then he says to Emmeline, "Oh, you're a hoochie coochie girl or something."
Oh yeah. That was funny. I will say this actually. So I don't know when to bring this up, but this film felt as if it was older than the 1980s to me. Like something about I think about kind of films from. Did I say, I think about, I don't know, Blade Runner. Maybe that's bad because it's like a good film. But like even, I don't know, Star Wars and things like that, you think have a certain, this film felt like, I guess it's just because it was set in the past in combination with being made in the 1980s. But when I think about the 80s, I think about kind of, techno dance music and rap was just starting, things like that. And it's really weird to imagine a film like this was being made because this film feels like it was made in like the 40s. I mean, obviously apart from the little kids running around naked, but like the dialogue and stuff, it all feels very antiquated, which makes it feel very strange. Like if you showed me this and asked me when it was made, I think I would be like, I don't know, it's probably early 70s, late 60s, which would be generous, but I guess that based on the camera quality. But in terms of like the writing and the way kind of it's presented with the characters and stuff, you're just like,
it's meant to be like a class. I mean, you think about Swiss Family Robinson, that was probably released in the 50s, I want to say. And this kind of tries to capture that spirit, I guess, of being on a tropical island and, living life to the full almost. And of course, it's based on a novel that was written in 1983. So maybe it's not that surprising they tried to go down that classic route, and it could be a movie from the 1970s. And the characters are just incredibly dumb. I want to say that they are dumb. And this movie also, I want to say, Michael, sadly for you, you've taken an L here. This movie dunks on religion.
Oh yeah,
completely destroys it with facts and logic.
That's true.
By showing, of course, they're teenagers, but basically they have the minds of kids for some reason. Even though you get smarter as you get older, just because you're not in society doesn't mean you remain dumb. But yeah, they're showing how these childlike people worship God because they are naive and they don't know any better. And then after that we get some more naked swimming after that. But in between that, she stepped on like a stonefish. And so she has to go before God, and pray for this rock, which the natives on the island, of course, used to pray to or used to sacrifice people or whatever. And so she is saved because of God. So and of course these people are stupid; they're idiots. So what does that make religion, Michael? Stupid, idiotic.
Yeah, I actually, just to respond to that in completely good faith, I really did think I thought it was interesting, actually. That was another moment where I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting, this idea of, it almost feels like there was moments in this film where I almost felt this film was like, it's going to sound weird, but in a way a bit like 2001: A Space Odyssey, as if it was almost like the point of the film was supposed to be a microcosm of the development of the human experience. So it was like, obviously, it has, that's why they have the scene of them kind of realizing what it is to grow up into adults, have the scene of them realizing that they can procreate, and of course have a scene of them coming to worship and understand something as God. And again, I was like, there was a moment I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's kind of interesting. I did like the idea of basically these people on an island when they're raised without a society, when they don't live in a society, they basically just adopt paganism, which kind of does make sense. I mean, obviously, it's anybody who knows anything about the history of religion would be like, yeah, generally speaking, in societies, the first things you see in more primitive, ignoring the problematic connotations of that term, but in more primitive societies, people tend to worship more corporeal things. So I was like, it's kind of funky to me that they would do that. They'd be like, oh, this guy must be God. And again, it is also it is willfully naive, but whatever.
And as we advance in society, less people are turning to religion. So,
and that's why, and Luke, I'm sorry, and then that's how you get people filming a bunch of kids running around naked.
Yes, that's a good point. Touche. Yes.
This is the fruits of secularism for you.
Oh God! I mean, hey, one of the most secular countries in the Western world, France. That's where cuties came from. Yeah, oh my God! Oh my God!
It all comes together now.
Oh God! We need to go back. We need to go back. Yeah. So
embrace tradition.
Oh, we need to, apparently. God. So we get after that some more naked swimming, and they fall in love, as you would expect. And she then has a baby. And the nitpick about the kicking and the baby. How can it kick so early? And here's the thing, like, I didn't actually know that they had sex because I looked on Wikipedia and it says they discover sexual intercourse, and I wasn't aware of that while watching the movie. I was like,
they kind of just lie next to each other naked.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were. They were just lying next to each other naked, and you were meant to infer from that they were having sex, but I thought it was like, eventually they'll get onto the sex. They're just at, I don't know, whatever. What's the American thing with the bases? It's like...
Oh yeah, there's like first base, second base. I don't really know if there is a base for lying next to each other naked. I actually don't know what the rules are. I think first base is kissing, second base is touching boobs, and then I think third base is touching private parts.
Private parts.
But then it's kind of weird because
what if you're just lying on each other naked?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't really know where that comes in. Like, maybe they don't even have dry humping. I don't know where that comes in.
Maybe it's the stage in baseball where you're trying to run to fourth base. I don't know if it's called fourth base.
What's it called when you like steal a base? What's that in sex?
That's rape?
Is that what? That's what they're doing in Hollywood.
Wow. Yeah. So good baseball analogies there,
yes,
guys. We really nailed it. Yeah. So that's it. I didn't actually know they had sex, but apparently they did, and we'll get onto that a bit later. Yeah. So she has a baby. This could have been a nitpick, but I guess this is a good time to talk about the natives. When she has a baby, when Richard discovers that there are natives on the island and they're sacrificing people at the exact same time. The baby is born. That happens, so that's a nice little coincidence there.
Reincarnation.
Yeah, reincarnation. Absolutely, they should have named him after the guy who died.
Yeah.
So, well, Michael, let's get on to the natives.
Okay, I've got one thing about the natives. So I think maybe we're going to have some kind of dank political dank poll political discussions. But the one thing that was really striking to me is it's so, like, I was going to put this as a nitpick, but it had to be a plot hole for me. The fact that the interaction between these people and the natives is so small, because, you know, I don't know exactly where they are. I'm guessing kind of in the Pacific because they're heading to Frisco. So with that in mind, the Polynesians, who you'd have to assume these people are, were very famous for sailing all over the place. I mean, we've all seen Moana. So the idea that they wouldn't even be regularly exploring the island on which they inhabit is insane. And like, it would be fine. Like, I could believe that for a week, maybe even a couple of months, you wouldn't come across a single kind of scout, a single fisherman or anything from the natives. But the idea that for years, over a decade probably, the natives apparently so reliably just stick to one side of the island, even though apparently it's a relatively brief walk to where they do the sacrifices. So apparently they walk there, and they've never ever just like taken those few extra, I mean, it seems to be like literally a couple of minutes walk, never ever just walked a little bit over onto the other beach and ever encountered these other people. And it was very strange. And I was just like, what? Why? Why? I mean, it would make way more sense if it was like there were two different islands or something, because they already established there were two different islands. But the idea that, yeah, it's just very strange to me that it's literally a decade and at no point do they ever interact with the natives.
Yeah, I thought that as well. I thought, because here's the thing, we'll get onto the actual depiction of them a little bit later, but the plot in itself would have been so much more interesting if they had, the natives had been involved in some way. They of course have, you know, the statue which they pray to, but you know, that's about it until he sees them, and then they never show up again. That's it. They're done. Like, they hear the drum beats, but that's all we get. And I just think it's, kind of ridiculous, to be honest. If you're writing the script and you have an opportunity maybe to have some conflict or some trades, you know, if they trade fish for whatever, I don't know, something like that. Just give me an interesting scene, please, because for a lot of the movie is, as we say, quite boring, to be honest. And that is something that they could have easily done to just spice it up a bit. Like having the natives meet, you know, Emmeline and Richard's scene. That would have been great. But they didn't decide to do that. So, the baby's born. We get some more naked swimming, this time naked baby swimming.
That was kind of cute.
Yeah. And then one day, and again, another coincidence nitpick, but it's bigger than a nitpick, I'd say, they have a mud fight. And that is the one day they get seen by a ship. And the ship, of course, is Richard's dad coming to look for them, scouting these islands. And he sees people, you know, with his telescope.
Frolicking.
Frolicking with a kid. And here's the thing. Clearly they have mud on them. Now, if the guy with the telescope can actually see what the audience can see, I think he would definitely see it was mud. I mean, mud does not look like skin. I mean, their hair as well. Look, their hair is like muddy. Like, you know, they're clearly in mud, and he's just like, nah, can't be them. I'm like, how the hell can't it be them? How the hell can't it be them? Like, that's your best book. I don't imagine you've had a lot of clues. Why not chase that up? Unless, you know, apparently his eyesight's so bad he can't tell the difference between mud and dark skin. But yeah, what do you think, Michael?
No, yeah, basically I agree with you. It is very, it is convenient for the plot. I mean, obviously it's
convenient
kind of,
and stupid.
Yes, convenient and stupid. And it's again weird because obviously the point of it was supposed to be that they decide that they don't want to be discovered and that they actually prefer living on the island paradise, which is, you know, again, something which I'll say is kind of an interesting place to take the film. But given that, they didn't really need to have this whole contrivance about the people not being able to tell who it is, because like they could have just been silhouetted or something, you know. Wouldn't that have worked better, like kind of silhouetted against the sun, because maybe they were on a cliff or something? And then they obviously they would see the ship and they would go, oh, we don't want to interact with them. In fact, and then that way, and you also wouldn't necessarily need to even have the idea of them running away because they don't want to interact with them, because it could just be like, well, he says let's go ashore, and by the time he gets ashore, they're not there anymore. Good writing, me. So yeah, it's a bit weird.
So yeah, like you said, they make the decision to stay on the island. which, I guess was inevitably where it was ending up. They do it, but then they go over to I don't know really why, and the other side of the island where Paddy died to see it, and the kid eats a bunch of berries. The berries that put you to sleep. And, of course, they realise, oh shit. Wait, and a shark attacks Richard as well. Another nice coincidence there. The shark attacks Richard, he loses an oar. I don't know how he doesn't manage to get the boat back because the current doesn't seem that strong, but whatever, maybe he can't do it. And then, of course, they're just out in the middle of the ocean. And they decide to eat the berries. They decide to all die together. How beautiful. And I thought that's how it was going to end. And it was going to be quite a sad ending. I was like, wow, they really that was a sad ending. Fair play to this movie. But then, out of nowhere, the father with the ship comes. He sees them, he rescues them, and apparently they're not dead either. They're just asleep. So talk about a cop out ending, Michael. Talk about an ending that could have been emotionally devastating, but in the end was just. I don't devastating. Maybe it's a bit too strong a word, but quite a sad ending. And then it's like, oh no, it's okay. They're alive and they're saved as well. So don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. Just I didn't really like the ending that much. What do you think?
Yeah, I will say this. I wasn't sure, and maybe you're going to maybe you'll disagree. For me, it felt like it. I wasn't sure if it was trying to be ambiguous, because obviously it could be the case that they're asleep. Because the berries put you asleep, but the implication is they put you asleep and then you die. So maybe it's like, oh, they're just asleep, but actually there's supposed to be some ambiguity as to whether or not they're actually going to wake up from the sleep and whether or not this is false hope. But that was, I thought the film might be trying to be, but yeah, I kind of, and with that in mind, I agree with you. It is weird because it's kind of like, the way the ending comes together is very strange, because the idea of them killing themselves, I agree with you, it would have been quite a poignant moment in the film to have them die, especially, even them then getting seen afterwards and discovered, if they're dead, would be sad. But then obviously, you have that moment of they're just asleep, and at best you say, well, maybe the people who say they're just asleep are wrong about the fact they're just asleep, and maybe they're asleep but like in a coma or something because of the effect of the berries, which would be sad, but then that's not really shown. But then also, even if we grant it's a happy scenario and that they are just asleep and they're going to be woken up, it's kind of strange to me to not, if you're going to have the cop-out of, oh wait, they're alive and they're going to be rescued, why not kind of commit to it a bit more and have an actual moment of them kind of waking up? I think
that'd take, if you're showing them waking up, that'd take like another 15 minutes, and then you've got to do the thing of, oh, maybe they want to go back. Like, you're going to have to probably add another half an hour.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, it just seems, because basically, so honestly, I kind of agree with you that it would be nice
you could cut some stuff, I guess, and then.
Actually, you could probably cut some stuff.
You could probably cut some stuff and fit that in and make it a bit more interesting, but they don't decide to do that. And maybe that's where the novel ends, and they decided, well, we don't want to we don't want to make up an ending for the novel. I'm just checking on Wikipedia. Richard and Emmeline eat the berries, lying down to await death. A few hours later, Arthur's ship finds them, and Arthur asks, "Are they dead?" Arthur is the father. The captain answers, "No, sir, they're asleep." So
is that for the novel?
That's from Wikipedia.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I meant okay.
Yeah. So I think they're alive, and the movie was just like, if we showed them waking up and reuniting, that's going to be a whole another 30 minutes, and we can't really be bothered. So let's just cut it. I didn't really want to watch more of the movie. So I guess that's the end of the movie, and we'll talk about, I guess, the reviews now.
Yes.
On the Wikipedia section, because the review section on Wikipedia has a lot of critics just panning it for various reasons, and we can dive into those various reasons. So first off, The Blue Lagoon was panned by critics. It holds a score of 8% on Rotten Tomatoes out of 24 reviews. Yeah, that's quite bad. Well, what would that be, Michael? Doing some quick maths.
8% out of 24 reviews.
Two people liked it. Yeah, 2 out of 24, so not that good. The critical consensus reads, "A piece of lovely dreck. The Blue Lagoon is a naughty fantasy that's also too chaste." Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, chaste.
Good. Not chaste, that would be ridiculous.
It would make sense because it is chastity, so the English language is just stupid, really.
I know, that's what I was thinking. To be truly entertaining. So yeah, it's not naughty enough, basically. Among the more common criticisms were the ludicrously idyllic portrayal of how children would develop outside of civilized society, the unfulfilled build-up of the island's natives as a climactic threat, and the way the film, while teasing a prurient appeal, conspicuously obscures all sexual activities. So let's talk about that. Now, here's the thing, Michael. Like I said, I didn't even realise the two had sexual, relations, as it were, in the movie. I had no idea. I just thought they were like hugging each other or kissing each other.
You just thought he was hurting her.
And yeah, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but I was like, oh, well, that's a bit shit, isn't it? I mean, they are nude for so much of the movie, but they're too scared to show sex scenes. And here's the thing, of course, the actress at the time was 14 years old.
Oh, really?
Yes. But you might be thinking, whoa, 14 and she's nude all the time. But here's the thing, Shields was 14 when she appeared in the film. All of her nude scenes were performed by 32-year-old stunt coordinator Kathy Trout. Shields did many of her topless scenes with hair glued to her breasts. Because I was wondering about that, because I looked at Shields and she was born in 1965, and I was like, wait, that would mean she would be 15 years old. What the fuck? And I was like, yeah. And obviously then you see that and you're like, okay, that makes more sense. Atkins was 18 when the movie was filmed, so he performed his own nude scenes, which included brief frontal nudity. It did, but they don't decide to show sex, Michael. They don't. So are you disappointed, Michael? I bet you are.
No, I mean, I will say this. I thought actually, some might say chaste. I would say tasteful. I would say that the use of nudity in this film always felt tastefully obscured, and that I didn't really have the need to be titillated with any explicit sexual stuff. I think maybe it would have been a bit nicer if the pregnancy hadn't come out of nowhere. So if it would have been telegraphed a bit more transparently that they were actually sexually active, such that when she's pregnant, it wouldn't just be like, wait, what? So yeah, that's the only thing I didn't like. So it wasn't like I was hankering for some nudity, but I was thinking hankering for some sex. But I will say that maybe they could have got, they didn't have to be explicit, but if they could have made it more obvious they were having sex, then that could have helped to, make it so we knew they're pregnant. I mean, it could have literally just been a case of, they start kissing, they lie down on the bed, the sun pans up to the moon, next morning they're kind of in each other's arms. I'm like, okay, they probably had sex. But as things stand, it's kind of like they're so comfortable naked around each other anyway, that the fact that they're naked with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't really imply anything.
Roger Ebert really didn't like the lack of sex. He says that this movie could have been an adventure epic, or this movie could have been made as a softcore sex film, but it's too restrained. There are so many palms carefully arranged in front of genital areas, and Brooke Shields' long hair is so carefully draped to conceal her breasts. There must have been a whole squad of costumers and set decorators on permanent erogenous zone alert. So, yeah, Ebert wasn't happy he couldn't say those 14-year-old breasts. Let's face it, going into the film, knowing what we've heard about it, we're anticipating the scenes in which the two kids discover the joys of sex.
Is that what Roger Ebert
This is Roger Ebert, yeah.
Oh, wow. People were so weird back in the past.
This is a prurient movie on our part, and we're maybe a little ashamed of it. But, just a little, though. But our shame turns to impatience. I love this. As Clayser intercuts countless shots of the birds and the bees. Every third shot in this movie seems to be showing a parrot's reaction to something. And there is no way to quite describe my feelings about the scene that takes place the morning after the young couple have finally made love. They go swimming, two gigantic turtles copulating, and smile sweetly at each other. Based on the available evidence in the movie, they know more at this point about the sex lives of turtles than about their own. So, yeah. But wait, these kids aren't finished. They have a baby after long, puzzled months of trying to figure out those stirring feelings in the girls' stomachs. Why did you have a baby? The boy asks. I don't know, the girl says. They try to feed the kid fresh fruit, and then they look on in wonder as the baby demonstrates the theory and practice of breastfeeding. So that's what they're there for. So basically Ebert wasn't happy. Not enough sex between the kids. And
yes.
That's what he paid. That's what he was anticipating. That's what he paid his ticket for, and he didn't get it. And that's the thing.
I demand more child sex.
That's just every producer in a Hollywood movie in the 80s, just saying that. But yeah, that's the thing. this movie grossed almost 60 million at the box office, I imagine there were quite a few disappointed people like Roger Ebert walking out of this. Like, well, here's the thing. Like, I wanted funnier sex scenes. I don't funnier, like, just because the thing is, it's boring, and you know, if it's a movie's 8% and it's got, you see on Wikipedia, it contains a lot of sex scenes, it's like, oh, this could be really
You
good.
wanted Showgirls.
I did want Showgirls. I did want Showgirls. Goddammit! But that's the thing for us. I think we can access nude images of girls, Michael, quite quickly.
Theresa May's plans to thwart it didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out. So for us, living in the year 2020, it's not that big a deal. But I imagine in the year 1980, they would have. They would have been so angry walking out. They would
have been bringing their lube into the theaters, coming out like with their full tubs of lube, just like. I had to eat popcorn for that whole movie.
Oh god, popcorn's nice. I'm sure. You know, that's at least there was popcorn.
Yeah, lots of them were just anger eating. At the fact,
I didn't get to see that 14-year-old's tits, but you know, at least I saw the popcorn, and that was the. And thing is, Ebert also goes after this movie in other ways, but I thought that was just a bit funny. Roger Ebert gave the film 1.5 stars out of 4, claiming it could conceivably have been made interesting if any serious attempt had been made to explore what might really happen if 2 7-year-olds were shipwrecked on an island. But this isn't realistic. It's a wildly idealized romance in which the kids live in a hut that looks like a Club Med honeymoon cottage, while restless natives commit human sacrifice on the other side of the island. He also deemed the ending a blatant cop-out. He and Gene Siskel selected the film as one of their Dogs of the Year in a 1980 episode of Sneak Previews. Time Out commented that the film was hyped as being about natural love, but apart from doing it in the open air, there is nothing natural about 2 kids unfettered by the bonds of society from their early years subscribing to marriage and traditional role-playing. And that is, I guess, true. I mean, if there's a point of this movie, it's like, because they keep on looking at pictures of Victorian couples.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
And it's like, they're just like that, or they all end up the same anyway. You know, it's like, you know, this is their paradise, this is their home, but they're kind of like those couples back in Victorian England or wherever. And yeah, it's just like, it's kind of inevitable that, you know, the two kids fall in love. It's natural, as the poster says. It's natural love. It's the most natural love. It's always going to be what happens. And it's like, well, as Roger Ebert points out, it's quite idealized, and it's, I guess, quite boring, really. You know, they're unfettered by the bonds of society, but they just do what society would have them do anyway. So, that's where I guess the exciting part would come in, where they don't do things that they would normally do if they were in society, but that isn't really the case at all. By the end of the movie, they've got a house, they've got a kid, you know, they're happy.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is what would happen normally. Gary Arnold of the Washington Post called the film a picturesque rhapsody to learning skills, playing house, and going swimming, enjoying the scenery and starting to feel sexy in tropical seclusion. He particularly ridiculed the lead character's persistent inability to make obvious inferences. And yes, I agree with that as well. But firstly, Michael, let's just go back to the natural love thing. And they just end up like any other couple. Do you have anything to say on that?
So I do kind of agree with that. I mean, I think, and I kind of do agree. So obviously the comparison which nobody's made yet is to Lord of the Flies, which is also about children being shipwrecked on an island. But the point of the Lord of the Flies is that the implication is that outside of a society, people will basically just resort to being savages. That's what the logic is of. That's the philosophy of Lord of the Flies. Whereas this film has a different philosophy. I will say, I don't know if I think the philosophy of this film is worse, because I think in a way you could make an argument that, in a strange sense, arguably, saying that certain social constructs like monogamy, I mean, it's kind of annoying because obviously, in a sense, monogamy was almost dictated by the way the film works out, because it's just a boy and a girl on the island. There are natives, but they don't interact with them. So it's kind of like they kind of had to end up being monogamous anyway. It was either monogamy or celibacy, and celibacy would probably be even less natural. So it's kind of like, the way the film was set up, it pretty much had to end up with like that. And therefore, if they wanted to commit to something more interesting, I guess it would be like if there was more than one girl on the island or more than one boy on the island, and they still committed to
he's having
monogamy.
threesomes.
Oh yeah, that's the question. Yeah, would they still commit to monogamy, or would he have a little harem of girls? So you know,
you know what? Roger Ebert says this movie could have been made as a tale of wilderness survival. The Swiss Family Robinson meet Slaughter of the Flies. So he does actually say that. Does Roger Ebert?
Yeah. Because basically, I do think so. I do think the philosophy of human beings will develop societies, or particularly people, given that these people who already come from a kind of Victorian society, would develop societies like those ones that were associated with Victorian times naturally of their own volition anyway. Is kind of an interesting philosophy. I wouldn't necessarily be like, it's worse they didn't do that, but I guess whatever they did, they would have had to have committed to exploring it more. So I guess that's kind of the issue. Like they could have gone either way. They didn't. They could have gone down the Victorian route is that's how societies will be, and that's the natural formation for a society. If they would have kind of explored it more interestingly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't that interesting. And let's go back to what Gary Arnold said. Actually, he said he ridiculed the lead character's persistent inability to make obvious inferences.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we said before about how can the kids be that dumb. And Roger Ebert also thinks that. Going back to his review, he actually starts it off. The first paragraph, it says, it concludes with a series of scenes designed to inspire the question. If these two young people had grown up in a civilized surroundings, wouldn't they have had to repeat the 4th grade? Obviously, he doesn't think much of the character's intelligence, and that's correct, because that's the thing, they act like they're kids when they're like 14, but like I said before, you do get smarter as you get older as well. Just because you're not in society doesn't mean you still remain the same as you were when you were 8 years old. He also continues, The Blue Lagoon is the dumbest movie of the year. It could have conceivably been made interesting if any serious attempt had been made to explore what might really happen if 2 7-year-old kids were shipwrecked on an island. And then he goes into saying it's not a real realistic movie, it's an idealized romance and all that. But the kids aren't that smart, Michael, are they? They're quite dumb. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. I think we've kind of already gone into how the children aren't that smart already, or the teenagers aren't that smart already. So I think that point's been made sufficiently, but I'll just reaffirm that indeed they are not very smart.
Good reaffirming. And let's talk about the island's natives now, Michael. Of course, we've criticised that they're built up as a climactic threat, and then they're just dumped. Roger Ebert again really didn't like that. And let's talk about the fact that you've got them doing ritualistic sacrifices, aren't they? Just very stereotypical, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, like it's kind of crazy that they're not cannibals, to be honest. It's weird.
Why? Because they should be?
Well, it's because, I don't know, like that's what... when I think about kind of the idea of scary natives in... I don't know if there's like a word for this kind of genre, but kind of Victorian/Edwardian exploration romances. Because I feel like there are a few of them. Like, obviously, you've got 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Treasure Island, whatever else. Basically, but I don't think either of those have cannibalistic natives in them, but it's kind of something I think about, like the idea of the ship's crew get trapped somewhere, and then the cannibals come, the natives come with their spears, shouting and hollering their native tongues, and then they tie the men up and drag them away, and then they cook them, and they go, "Oh drat, we've been cooked," and they go, "Don't worry, old chap, it's all for king and country." Anyway, so that's what I imagine, but they're not. They're just kind of. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, it would be. The thing is, like, it's kind of a case of there's so much not going on that it's kind of like it's hard to really have a nice long conversation about the political implications of it, because it's just like you're really just overwhelmed by how bizarre the whole thing is when you consider, as it was already pointed out, how little it impacts the overall plot.
Yes. Yeah, and I think you're right about this Victorian thing. I mean, I guess it's just fear of the other. Like, there has to be a threat. And in this movie, they didn't even fulfill the threat. But these weird people with their sacrifices and their, cannibalizing are just, I mean, oh God, you look at our society, particularly in these last 3 months, we'd never sacrifice people, for the greater good or whatever. We never even think about doing that. But that's the thing. They, that's for king, the old thing for king and country. I think we can see that things are looked a bit different now. In society, if this movie came out, I think that would get more focus. It didn't really get a lot of focus. But there you go. I guess that's just what people, especially the person who wrote this novel in 1903, would have thought of native people. And of course, the reason why they had a bad reputation, without a doubt, is because they had the temerity to fight back when British or Western Europeans landed on that island and started taking their resources. And
it's especially because obviously, I guess it's kind of interesting because the Polynesia was one of the last places still really being subdued by British colonialism, because they were still like the Maori Wars and all that stuff was going on in like the 1890s and things like that. So Australia and America, they were done. India, it was done, but the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, they were still kind of holding out, just cannibalizing people, no doubt.
No, absolutely, and and thank God for Moana. So
there's also a Tom and Jerry episode where they get trapped on a native island, and Jerry covers his face in coal from a fireplace in order to make himself look like a native, and then gets a spear and tricks Tom into thinking he's been taken kidnap by native pygmies, and seeks to cook him in a big pot. And then eventually he starts doing a rain dance, and his trousers fall down. He's wearing like a loincloth, and his loincloth falls down, revealing that in fact beneath the coal he's not really a black person at all. He is a mouse. And then Tom realizes he's been had. Pretty entertaining.
Great stuff.
Great Tom and Jerry.
Classic Tom and Jerry episode. So there we have it, I guess. There's our review of Blue Lagoon. Well, let's get into the conclusion. So, do you want to go first, Michael?
Yeah, why not? So overall, I mean, the thing about this film is, I will say this actually, Luke. You know what? I don't know how we managed it. I'm going to probably say it was all me. But this has actually been quite an entertaining discussion. And which is weird, because the film is not entertaining. But I think there's something to it. And I will say this film, it is quaint in a lot of ways. Like, obviously, there's the fact that, as has already been said, the nudity is very honest, is the funny thing about it. It's not really there to titillate you. I like using that term. Everybody used it once. And it's just there, I guess, because realistically, if you didn't live in our society with its norms, you probably would be naked quite a lot. Obviously, later on, the characters, because one of them's 14, do have to be, or one of the actors is 14, do have to be a bit more circumspect with how much they're naked, but it's all kind of, it does feel quite real. And there are some things I liked. I did kind of like the idea of having these characters exploring all these things, but again, it's hindered by the fact they're kind of stupid about it. I liked the idea of, I think in general, the idea of people just surviving on a desert island is kind of an interesting concept, but again, it's kind of unrealistic because they're too competent at it, and it kind of doesn't really get over or deal with any of the actual issues that should naturally emerge from that. And then of course there's the natives, which would be an interesting thing, but then it's they don't even add that in for a bit of action. Overall, it's not really unwatchably boring, I would say. Because I do think it's kind of a interesting experience to watch unfold, but just as long as you're not hoping for too much. And with that in mind, I'm not going to give it a particularly terrible rating. I'm probably going to give it a high 3. I'm going to put it above The Force Awakens and below Ocean's 12, which is weird because those two films are very different to this, but then there are no films which are similar to this. So
what did you give out of 10?
A high 3, so it would be for you a 3.5.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, like we said before, this movie is quite boring. Doesn't have any plot really, any conflict. They just do what a normal couple would do, or teenagers would do, or whatever. They eventually fall in love. They have a kid. They're happy together. Wow, how fun, eh? All conflict is taken out, and of course there's no sex scenes either, so you don't even get that. Actually, you know what, Michael, there was I can't remember what it was, but there was this movie, I think it's called Paradise, and there was this I guess nude scene in it, and I thought that nude scene was in this movie.
Is it called? I think it's Paradise 1982.
Yes, Paradise 1982. And from my recollection, because when I first looked up this movie, I can't remember. I looked up that Paradise movie, and it was, I think the actor looks a lot like the actor in this one, and it's Canadian, I believe. The Paradise movie.
Yes, it's Canadian adventure.
Yes.
romance film.
Yes, and I think if you go on the Wikipedia, you can actually see that they reference Blue Lagoon.
Yes, it was critiqued at the time as a knockoff of the more famous Blue Lagoon.
Yeah, imagine being a knockoff of Blue Lagoon. But that's the thing. In that movie, I do believe there is a nude scene with a girl. Quite a prominent one. And I remember after I watched this movie, I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Remember after thinking about Paradise, it's like, it delivered. That's what people wanted to see. And they got it in that movie. Roger Ebert complaining about not enough, naked. I mean, we're kind of slandering saying naked 14-year-olds. He just wanted some more action, I guess. Roger Ebert, and that movie, as you say, it delivered, Michael. It delivered. So yeah, eventually they got it right. Eventually they managed to make these. What would you call it? These exploration films.
Yeah.
While where nudity is is quite prominent. They got it right with Paradise.
I guess you could call them naturalist because it is kind of naturalist.
Yeah. So there you go. That's Paradise for you. A quick review of that movie. I don't know how good it is. It's probably quite bad, to be honest. That's I guess that's what people wanted when they were going in. Grossed 60 million. Wow. I thought it was going to be worse than it was, or funnier than it was, I should say, because it's still a pretty bad movie, but just funnier, more hilarious, more stuff to riff on. And we have riffed on quite a bit of things, Michael. So we can be proud of ourselves for that. Especially the Roger Ebert review was quite good. Yes. And all the talk about Hollywood paedophilia, always a hit, of course.
Yes, but it's our only joke.
Yeah, but it's not really a joke, is it? No, I mean that's so I guess I have to give it a review a score out of 10 to end this review. So we'll go with 3 out of 10. How about that? 3 out of 10. And maybe 2.5. Yeah, you know what? 2.5 out of 10. 2.5. I've knocked it down a bit because I like this. Yeah, I didn't really like anything about this movie.
That's fine.
Yeah, so 2.5 out of 10, but not the most offensive film. Like you say, it's well, you said it's quite quaint. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's going for quaint. It's trying to manufacture quaint. That's what it's trying to do. And I don't like movies that lie to me. Yeah. So that's it, Michael. What are we doing next week?
Well, next week, Luke, we're getting back into some pretty normal films, I like to think. And we're looking at Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah. That is right. Yeah, okay, good. I just wanted to double check that. So yeah, because things are being moved around so much that sometimes I say things and then I doubt myself. But yeah, Wonder Woman, which is like an actual film made by real people, not fucking...
Hey, this was as
the
well.
Hillbilly. No, I know. But yeah. We're going to watch an actual blockbuster, I guess. Because to be honest, like, it's actually been ages since we watched what I would call a blockbuster. So
thanks for listening. We have been selecting and reflecting on The Blue Lagoon. I'm now going to watch this movie again. Unfortunately, it's not quite as bad as the net turned out to be, but yeah, still disappointing in how not bad it's good. Does that make sense?
Yes. How not so bad it's good it is. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Join us next week for Wonder Woman. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael,
and I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.